Fans of survival and horror genre games, your time is here because the anticipated sequel of The Forest, Sons of the Forest, is here, and the grand question is it worth your time and money? Well, that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to the Lumberjack Gaming Channel, everybody, your place for friendly, quality gaming content. That's right, it has been almost 10 years since the release of The Forest. And finally, we've got a sequel to the game, Sons of the Forest. And I'm gonna be honest with you, if you are a fan of the original game, there is a very, very good chance that you are going to enjoy this one as well. However, that doesn't mean that it is not without its own flaws, that there aren't some things that they need to polish up on, but overall, it has been a great experience so far. Now, in the original game of The Forest, you play as a character named Eric LeBlanc, and you must fight off cannibalistic monsters while searching for your son Timmy after a plane crash. And while this game does not have the same exact story, there are very, very similar elements to it. Because the overarching story of Sons of the Forest is you are on a search and rescue team looking for a billionaire by the name Eric Puffton. Now, I'm not going to give away too many story details right here at the beginning, but essentially, your plane goes down and you are stranded on an island in a forest. Again, very similar concept to the first one. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Just from the trailers alone, just from the gameplay alone, you can see that there is a huge visual improvement to this game. The lighting is fantastic. The rendering of the forest, the trees, guys, it's a really, really beautiful game. Even one of the details that I loved about the visuals was the fact that, the sun goes behind the clouds and everything gets kind of cloudy for a second, to the point where I kept thinking, oh, is it nighttime? Oh no, it's just cloudy. It got dark because it's cloudy. These small attention to details just make this visually a very pleasing experience, especially as the seasons change. You get to see just some really beautiful looking scenery. And in game, it takes about 1 week to change the seasons. Now, obviously, that's not super realistic, but when you're playing a game like this, 1 week of game time is a pretty decent amount of time, and the fact that it's always changing up and the scenes just look incredible, especially that winter and fall time. It's just all around a great game. But before we really dive into it, it is important to know that this game is still technically in early access. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means that this game is definitely not done yet. In fact, it's still pretty early on in the stages, but I'm gonna be honest, guys, I've played a lot of early access games, and this is by far one of the most polished early access games that's come out, honestly, probably ever. Okay, maybe not ever, but it is very, very good. The team has said that they think that the early access should last for about 6 to 8 months as they continue to add new elements to this game, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But it's already a good thing to start off with the fact that this game is $30 in early access right now. One of the very first things that I noticed about this game is there's not a lot of hand-holding at the beginning. I mean, you get a pretty decent book that's going to tell you how to craft really simple structures, for like basic survival. But there's not necessarily a lot of tutorial that goes along with it. So I found myself fidgeting around with, sticks for a while and logs. It's actually been a pretty decently long time since I played The Forest. So even the things that kind of translate over to Sons of the Forest, I had to kind of relearn those things. I found myself playing around with sticks for quite a while until I actually figured out how to place them down and make a fire. Maybe that's just me though. Guys, you're probably way smarter than I am. Now, I want to start off by talking about what they've done really, really well in Sons of the Forest. Number one, and I found this to be a huge, huge help, is the fact that if you're playing this game on solo, you're not actually really alone. That is where Kelvin comes in. Now, Kelvin is one of the people that was on the search and rescue team, and pretty soon into the game, we're talking like 30 seconds into the game, you find him up, washed up on the shore, and he has had both of his eardrums just completely blown out. So you have to write down notes to show him, and what that does is he does a lot of like the really tedious parts of crafting games. He will go out, he will pick up sticks, he'll bring rocks back to you, he'll pick up logs. He goes around and he does a lot of the boring parts. Now, you don't actually have to use him at all. If you're not the kind of person that doesn't really want hand holding in this game, like you want to go around and you want to pick up all the sticks, you are more than welcome to go do that. But this is something that I think should be implemented into a lot of different crafting survival games. Guys, I felt like I was so much more opened up to exploring the world around me when I had Kelvin doing all of the busy work that I didn't really want to do. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't also pick up sticks or rocks or logs or, the basics of crafting, but the fact that he was around to do that made it, oh my gosh, guys, it was so much easier. And of course, I would never do this, but if you don't want him in this game, all you have to do is, in the head, you just take a gun and But I would never do that to Kelvin. Kelvin's my guy. Another one of the very, very good things that they did in this game is just improving upon what made the forest so great. And honestly, that is the very smart and the reactionary AI. Guys, the enemies in this game are like the smartest enemies in almost any game that I've ever played, because they don't just run up to you, they watch you, they analyze you, they see what you're about. If you start going into their camp, most of them probably aren't going to attack you right away. However, a few of them might, or they might send one person up to you to fight you first, and then they decide that you're a threat. They're smart enough to keep their distance. They will watch your patterns. They'll see where you go. They'll follow you back to your home. I immediately found some cannibals, like at the very beginning of the game, and I got destroyed, like destroyed. But I was the one that picked the fight first. They were running around me, just kind of watching me, and I decided that I was gonna take one of them out, not to realize that there was like 4 more of them hiding in the trees. And that only just completely adds to the horror element of this game. And speaking of the horror element of this game, it starts off very strong and very fast. Like there are already, like right at the beginning of the game, there are areas that you can go explore and probably wet yourself when you find things that you were not expecting to find. It does not take long for enemies to start slowly making their way towards your camp and checking it out. And when you only have a single fireplace that's lighting your entire camp, when you just kind of start seeing enemies, you know, slowly walking around you and not attacking you. That's the part that's probably the most terrifying, is that they don't attack you at first. At least most of them. They just kind of watch from a distance. They see what you're about. And honestly, that is like the most terrifying part. Now slowly, and especially as you start to interact with them more and you start to kill more of them, they start making some assaults on your place. Again, making this just a terrifying experience from the beginning to end, because it's like the AI are learning about you. It's like they're taking their time, they're strategic about it, and they're just these horrific looking monsters. Now the next thing is definitely a pro, but it also can feel like a con right now. So let's talk about what I mean by that. The crafting in this game is actually really fun and really satisfying. It was honestly pretty fun in the forest, but Sons of the Forest just takes that to the next level, making crafting feel more important, more intuitive. However, because this game is still in early access, one of the biggest things that has people a little iffy on the game already is the fact that there's not really a ton of things to craft yet. And that's why I said it's only a partial con. This game is not finished. They're very clear about that from the beginning, that it's early access. And while it looks incredible, there's still elements to this game that need to be worked on. There's still things that they're going to add, content that they're going to continue to roll out over the next 6 to 8 months, as they said that's about how long they expect early access to last. That's also not to say that there won't be content after early access is over, but we can still expect updates to this game pretty frequently as they add in more things like crafting elements, things that you can create throughout this game. But as it stands, it is still a very satisfying crafting system that I'm excited to see what more things they actually come up with. And if you're not necessarily into the more terrifying elements of this game, if you're not really into, fighting a bunch of enemies, you can play on peaceful mode. If you're just looking to craft, your beachfront house stranded on an island, you can do that by playing the peaceful mode. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but it's definitely not what this game centers around. I feel like you'd be missing a very core part of what this game is supposed to be. Guys, I've looked around at a lot of other people's reviews on this game. This game is definitely getting a very, very good review. As of right now on Steam, it is in the very positive category, and that makes sense. I think that's only going to continue as this game adds more and more content to it, more crafting to it. However, at the end of the day, I'm going to say right now, I definitely recommend playing Sons of the Forest, especially being a $30 game. It's still in early access, so remember that as you're looking for all the things to craft, and the fact that the story isn't 100% finished yet, but it's going to continue to add some great elements to it. We've already seen it with the Forest. We're going to continue to see it with Sons of the Forest. So at the end of the day, I would say absolutely this game is worth a shot. And I would say make sure that you have a change of pants very nearby, because man, this game is terrifying. Here at the Lumberjack Gaming Channel, we are all about building a positive community of gamers that just want to hang out, share their passion, uplift each other, If that sounds like something that you want to be a part of, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all things gaming news, make sure to check out these videos here, and I'll see you in the next one.